Good morning. I'm Dan DeRose with 19 News Now, coming to you from our digital desk. We're about to take you to the sentence of Jay Ryan Church, just 18 years old. He was found guilty, or actually pleaded guilty, to shooting a Cleveland officer last year. He and three other juveniles were in a Hyundai, a stolen Hyundai, a Kia. Jay Ryan is in the orange there. You see him bailing out. That is Detective Mark Baruschuk. He was chasing the suspects. He found Jay Ryan a couple of streets over running. We're going to show you the moment that Jay Ryan shot him at close range. You could see Baruschuk was hit in the thigh and the arm. Take a look at the second that he pulls up on the suspect and gets shot.
I'm right now! I know 70, I'm shot!
Again, this was after chasing a stolen Kia, as has been the pattern we've seen throughout the country. Let's take you now live into court for the sentencing of 18-year-old Jay Ryan Church for shooting that officer.
And counsel, are you prepared to go forward?
Yes, Your Honor.
Anything the state would like to place on the record prior to imposition of sentence?
Yes, Judge, thank you. Your Honor, on March 14th of last year, Detective Mark Baruschuk was patrolling with other members of his unit from 3rd District Cleveland Police Department when a member of the Cleveland Police discovered, saw what was believed to be and confirmed to be a stolen Kia being driven around, and so that officer, that's Detective Kyle Schenke, tried to make a traffic stop, and the person who was driving did not stop. He traveled a short distance, crashed the car, and ran. Detective Schenke saw something in that individual's right hand and gave chase. You're about to see Detective Schenke's body camera here in a moment. As he was running and chasing this individual, Detective Schenke called out over radio what he saw and what he was doing and where that person was going. And that is when other members of the 3rd District, specifically Detective Baruschuk, picked it up and saw that individual and attempted to make a stop himself. And that individual turned and fired 4 shots directly at Detective Baruschuk. You're going to hear those shots on Detective Schenke's body camera, and you're going to see those shots on Detective Baruschuk's body camera. And this person ran off. Cleveland Police Homicide Unit picked up the investigation, which I'll get back to in a moment. But at that moment, Detective Baruschuk was injured severely. He had a bullet wound to his arm, a bullet wound to his leg. He didn't even immediately know about the bullet wound to his leg because he tried to run, call out, and he fell and collapsed. Police officers rushed him to the hospital where he was given emergency medical care. And police also contacted his family and spoke to his wife and brought her to the hospital as well. You will hear from both of them here in a moment. But what I'd like to do is show you some of this incident, Judge. Detective Schenke's body camera goes to the counts of receiving stolen property, failure to comply, and improper handling of a firearm in a motor vehicle. And you'll see his body camera first. That will be Exhibit 1.
That's it. Right high. Oh! 377! Bill's from the point from Cedar just crashed. Bill's running towards the East 30 in the Cedar. Bearcheck, come over. Now, Flagdale, Orange Hoodie, North South, and East 30th. Towards the Central. Still running. South, coming up to Central. So let's try that school. He's gonna be the driver.
I'll pause it here for a moment. You're about to hear other radio over Detective Barachek's body camera, specifically over Shinky's body camera, specifically Detective Barachek. But as you can tell, Detective Shinky knew that this driver was a juvenile, which I'll get back to in a moment.
Going eastbound or going west on East 30th to Central.
I have some situation close there.
You get something in his right hand.
I'm going to sit down there.
I understand he's got a shot fired.
What you heard at the end of that, Judge, was Detective Barachek calling out gun with a 50-round mag. And you heard 4 gunshots. Now I'd like to play his body camera.
Kyle, where's he at?
Going eastbound or going west on East 30th to Central. I have some situation close there. Get something in, bring it in.
Gun with a 50-round mag. I'm the fucking ground right now! Look! I know 7 a.m. Shot! I'm shot! Fuck! I know 7 a.m. Help! Fuck!
What you heard, that was State's Exhibit 2. What you heard there, Judge, gun with a 50-round mag. And then you saw Detective Barachek get shot coming out of his vehicle. Did not have a weapon pulled, did not have any advantage whatsoever. In a completely vulnerable position. I want to show you States 3. These are still frames taken from the body camera. What you see, these are in sequence. This is him opening the door. The individual with the orange sweatshirt begins raising up. Points the gun directly at him. And you can see that is a gun with a 50-round drum magazine on it. Detective Shinky instinctively puts his arm up in front of him. That's his left arm. That's the arm that gets shot. That round goes through his arm and strikes his vest. You see this individual is continuing to point his gun at Detective Barachek, even as he's falling. I'll go back to the second to last frame. That right there, Judge, is the orange sweatshirt with the gun with the 50-round drum magazine. Police, Detective Barachek was taken to the hospital and treated. Police then began investigating. Ultimately, Judge, without getting into all the evidence, they discovered that that shooter is Jerry Church, the defendant. His DNA was found in the driver's area of that Kia, and Police found evidence of him being at a at a gas station on video wearing the exact same sweatshirt earlier in the day. And they also found his cell phone, which he left behind at the Kia, and found in it several pictures. And I've got one right here. The picture on the left, Judge, was taken from his phone, and that's him posing with the gun with the 50-round magazine on it. And that's on the right is a still frame from the shooting. That's State's Exhibit 4. Your Honor, this defendant was 17 years old when he did this. And he was bound over, and now we're here. I'll get back to that in a moment. At this point, Judge, I would like to call up Detective Barachek to make a statement.
If you want to have stand next.
Yep.
Detective, if you would, please state your name, spell your last name for the record. Your comments addressed to the board, please.
Detective Mark Barachek, Barijczczuk.
What would you like the court to know?
Am I able to just read right from this?
Sure.
Thank you, Your Honor, for giving me an opportunity to speak on the impact this incident has caused me, but also my family and friends. I would like to start to talk about the day that my life was almost taken from me. I remember calling my wife around 6:18 p.m., telling her that myself and my partner were going to recover a stolen vehicle real quick and it shouldn't take that long. I remember saying it wouldn't take long because of the numerous amount of stolen cars we have recovered leading up to this one. Another day, another stolen vehicle recovers what I thought it would be. As I hung up the phone with my wife, we made our way to East 28th and Cedar and saw the car we had seen on footage just minutes prior. Unlike many of the vehicles we recover, suspects were in this car. I remember getting out of the passenger seat, running after someone that had gotten out of the back seat of that car. As I ran after him, he dropped a firearm and my partner broadcasted over radio that the driver of the vehicle was running and he was in a foot pursuit. At that time, I recovered the gun that was dropped and got back into the car to help my partner. When he gave out the direction of travel, I immediately, without hesitation, headed that way. I saw Jerion running, holding a gun with a large magazine. As I pulled up and was getting out of the car, Jerion did something that I never expected. He stopped running, turned, and came towards the back of my car. When I got out, I could hear the shots ring, and to this day, I still hear them in the back of my head. For a brief moment, as I was falling to the ground, I felt darkness surrounding me. That moment felt extremely long, but I imagine it was death. Was this how my life was going to end? Am I ever going to see my wife and my son, who was 3 months old at the time? Will I be able to see him grow up? What will my wife do without me? That's how long that brief moment felt to me. As I got up, I knew my arm was broken, and then the blood started to pour from it. Another moment when I thought I actually might die. If it weren't for my coworker's quick action to put a tourniquet on me, I would have bled out, and you, Jerion, would have taken away so much more than a life. You would have taken away the chance for my son to grow up without me. You would have taken away a husband from an amazing wife, a son to a mother, and a brother to a sister. The list can go on, but I did not let you kill me. I stayed strong physically and emotionally for myself and everyone around me. I remember being in the hospital, remaining as positive as I can for everyone that was around me, and especially my wife. You have no idea the pain and trauma you put my wife through. She was at home and had just gotten off the phone with her. Now I was stuck in a hospital, constantly and endlessly thinking how lucky I am that you didn't kill me. Not to mention that bullet that struck my arm did hit me in the side of the vest, so I get to live with that mark on the body for my rest of my life. That's not the only mark you left. I have 4 bullet hole scars to remind me that I am still here and that I have to see those every day of my life. A scar that is the length of my forearm because the bone couldn't be fixed without a large piece of metal. Days I was in the hospital in so much pain because you shattered my arm. When I was finally able to go home, guess what? Couldn't even pick up my son. You know how difficult it is to have a newborn son that I couldn't even pick up? I cannot even explain the mental toll that alone took on me. I was a father, dad, and husband, but I was helpless. On medication because of the pain. Sleepless nights because there is no possible way to get comfortable. This will not be the only time I say this, but I will never forgive you for what you did to me and my family. I did seek out mental help just to be able to discuss what happened, because what you put me through was the exact definition of trauma. I cried, I was mad, angry, sad, and happy that you were finally caught. Jerion, you single-handedly put me in the worst pain of my life, and I will never, never have full mobility in my wrist again. That took away my ability to ride a dirt bike, which I have done literally my entire life, and my wife can attest to this, but I had dreams of racing and riding with my son, which I will no longer be able to do. Going back to the gym, I can't even bench anymore because of the functionality of my wrist. I spent many mornings, afternoons, and nights thinking about you almost killing me and how you have affected my life. One of the questions that was asked in the victim impact statement was if I fear you. Not even in the slightest would I fear someone like you. Someone like you is a coward who couldn't own up to their actions. Instead, you tried to take a shortcut by killing me, which is why I want you to suffer the pains and penalties of your actions to the fullest extent. Thank you, Your Honor.
One more person I'd like to hear from, Judge. I want you to state your name and spell it for the record.
My name is Alexandria Barachuk, B-A-H-R-I-J-C-Z-U-K. Thank you for allowing me to speak here today. My name is Alexandria Barachuk, but I go by Lexi, and I am Mark's wife. Before I begin to explain how this horrific event has not only affected my life, but my husband's and our entire family and close friends, I want to tell you a little bit about my husband. Mark is a son, a brother, a husband, a grandson, a cousin, a nephew, a close friend, and last, but definitely not least, a new father. As soon as I met my husband, he was aspiring to be a police officer, and his dream was to help people and make a difference any way that he could. He took an oath with the city of Cleveland to serve and protect the community, and that is exactly what he has done time and time again. He doesn't like it when people say this, but in my heart, he is a hero. Almost a year ago, my worst fear as a police officer's wife had come true. I remember the day so vividly and think about it daily, as it has really left a toll, and parts of it still haunt me. I had spoken to my husband at 6:18 p.m., and not even a half hour later, I received the worst phone call one can imagine. I was told my husband was shot and on his way to Metro Hospital. I did not know where he was shot, if he was stable, or what condition he was in, or how this happened. At the time, I was holding my 3-month-old son, thinking the very worst. Was my son going to grow up without a dad? And was I going to be a widow? How could this happen to my husband? And what kind of person would shoot a police officer? I was filled with rage, disappointment, and fear. After learning more about the event that took place, I became even angrier. Young kids were in a stolen car, and when my husband came to the scene to try and stop them, he immediately was gunned down. My husband was shot at, not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 4 times. 4 times. Jerion's intentions were to kill my husband, all because of a stolen car and a gun. He didn't want to get caught, so instead of just running away, he made a conscious choice to shoot a police officer for doing his job. He left my husband alone, to die. At that moment, I couldn't even imagine what my husband was going through. He was probably terrified, lying on the cold ground, alone, bleeding out, waiting for help to arrive. That is an image I cannot get out of my head. Even though Jerion was a juvenile at the time, there is no excuse for his actions. Children learn right from wrong at an early age, and even my 1-year-old son knows what no means. He deliberately shot my husband 4 times before he was even fully out of the car. My husband didn't even have a chance to reach for his gun to protect himself. Because of this event, my husband had to undergo surgery, physical therapy, and psychology appointments. He will never have full range of motion in his left arm ever again. His mental health has forever changed. I have watched my husband experience nightmares, not knowing how to socially interact with people in public, and act fearful when going to ordinary places such as the grocery store due to this incident. His entire outlook on life has changed, as well as mine. We no longer trust anyone. Being shot has traumatized my husband in numerous ways. He can no longer listen to fireworks without his heart racing and feeling nervous. He has a difficult time sleeping soundly. Big crowds are overwhelming for him. As a couple, we have to attend monthly therapy to learn how to cope with certain aspects of the PTSD that my husband suffers from. The scary thing about this event is that the trauma you caused has no timeline. We truly do not know how this can affect my husband down the road. It could be tomorrow, a month from now, or 10 years, or nothing could happen, but it's not knowing what can trigger him in any instance that scares me. The most difficult part of this journey is the fact that you compromised the entire first year of my son's life, a year that we will never get back. I had to witness my husband feel helpless in taking care of our 3-month-old son since he could not pick him up or do simple things like change his diaper. I could see the stress consume my husband, and it broke my heart every day. Although my husband struggled at first to do normal everyday things, he was a fighter and continued to get stronger day by day. This incident does not define my husband or our family. In fact, it made us love each other even more, and it made us realize that we can get through anything. Jerion, you are the type of person that makes the families and friends of police officers stay awake at night, wondering if our loved ones will return to us. Despite your last name, there is nothing church-like or Christian-like about you. I consider myself a religious person, but I will never forgive you for what you did to my husband and our family. In my opinion, for every shot that Jerion fired at my husband should equate to 10 years of prison. Why should this person be free at a young age? He should have to sit and sulk and think about the decision he made every single day until he is old and gray because he tried to take an innocent life away. I wish you could get life for what you did to my husband and our life, because that is what you deserve. You shouldn't be able to see the light of day again. Your Honor, I ask that you sentence Jerion to the maximum sentence allowable by law. Thank you.
Judge, just a few more comments. This defendant, Your Honor, pled guilty to attempted aggravated murder, the attempted murder of a police officer. We ask a lot of police officers. And there's plenty of people out there who may think this is just part of the job. You sign up for this job and this is what you might run into any day. That's not right. And what you've just heard about is the ramifications of what someone like Jerion Church can do to a police officer's family. It doesn't matter that he was 17 when he did this. Please sentence him accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you. Counsel on behalf of your client.
Thank you. Your Honor, I was going to start my comments by saying I was glad that Detective Barachek had recovered from this. I'm glad you survived this, sir, and I hope you do recover fully. And I echo Mr. Cleatro's comments. Police officers have probably the most dangerous, toughest job in this country, especially with the increasing violence that's going on. In Jerion's behalf, I can tell you that, as you know, this is a mental health docket that he's on. He suffers from psychotic illness, has auditory hallucinations, and he grew up around an environment, Your Honor, with plenty of guns, plenty of violence. He's had friends killed. None of that is meant as an excuse to these fine officers who are here. It's meant to give the court more understanding of the world that he came from is different maybe than the world I came from, and the people who are here. I tell you, he didn't mean this. He didn't wake up that day and expect this to happen. He should have reacted differently when he was caught getting out of the kid. He should have just stopped it. I told him this would be still in juvenile court. And you just lay down on the ground, surrendered when you got out of that vehicle. Instead, it turned into a terrible case, a terrible fact pattern, a terrible situation, and like I said, I hope that Detective Barachek will fully recover. He is young, Judge, not fully grown yet. We ask the court to take that into consideration, that 5-10 years from now, he'll be a different person. Hopefully rehabilitation can take place. He'll be a different person, understand the seriousness of what he's done, grow from this, and one day be a productive citizen of society. But we offer no excuses. We do ask for mercy. We understand the family, Detective Barachek's feelings. We know the court to take that into consideration. We ask you to take into consideration the world he came from, his age, any mental issues that this court is prepared and able to deal with. And for that, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Mr. Church, you wish to address the court? You don't have to. It's your right if you wish.
I apologize for this happening to you, Mr. Barachek. I hope this never happens to you again.
All right, the court has formulated its decision based upon the overriding principles and purposes of felony sentencing, which are to protect the public from future crime by the defendant or others, and to punish the offender using the minimum sanctions that the court determines accomplishes those purposes without imposing an unnecessary burden on state or local government resources. To achieve these purposes, the court has considered the need for incapacitation, deterrence, rehabilitation, and providing for restitution. The court has considered the relevant sentencing guidelines provided in Revised Code 292911, 292912, 292913, as well as 292919. Sir, before imposing my sentence, I must advise you of the following: that you have a notice of duty to enroll as a violent offender pursuant to Revised Code 2903.41, that you have been convicted of or pleaded guilty to a qualifying violent offense as defined in Ohio Revised Code 2903.41. You are required to enroll in person with the sheriff of the county in which you establish residency within 10 days of coming into that county, or if occupying a dwelling for more than 3 days in that county. You are required to provide the sheriff certain information, including your social security number, full name, and any aliases that you use, your residence address, information regarding the offense of which you were convicted or pleaded guilty, a description of any scars, tattoos, or other distinguishing marks on your person, the name and address of any place where you are employed or attend school, any driver's license number or commercial driver's license number or state identification card number issued to you, the license plate number of each vehicle owned or operated by you or registered in your name. The vehicle identification number and a description of a vehicle must also be provided to the sheriff. You are required to provide the sheriff fingerprints and palm prints. The sheriff will also obtain a photograph of you at the time of your enrollment. After the date of initial enrollment, you are required to re-enroll annually. You must update and or amend any of the information described above that has changed and provide any additional information requested at the county sheriff's office within 10 days of the anniversary of the calendar date on which you initially enrolled. If you change your residence address, you shall provide written notice of that change to the sheriff with whom you most recently enrolled and to the sheriff in the county in which you intend to reside. You're required to comply with all the above described requirements for a period of 10 years unless your sentence court determines otherwise. I do not determine otherwise. That will be for 10 years upon your release from the institution. To Detective Barachek and his wife, I'm very sorry that this occurred. I can't even imagine what you've been going through. And I think Mrs. Barachek, you summed it up best. Even a child knows right from wrong. Even a child knows right from wrong. You ruined these lives. You ruined your own life over a Kia, over a car, a cheap car. And you tried to take this man's life over a car. You've ruined your own life. You could have just kept on running. And what you're doing with a 50-round canister of ammunition, that's not for protection. That's not personal protection. You're the predator. All that man was trying to do was stop you. It would, as your lawyer even commented, this would have still been over in juvenile court as a receiving stolen property of a car. And you not once, not twice, not 3 times, 4 times aimed and tried to kill that young man over a car. I will never understand what's going on in our community. But it's my job not only to try and figure that out, but more importantly to protect it, and that's what we're going to do here today. As to count 1, the attempted aggravated murder with the 7-year firearm specification, that'll be 7 years on the underlying felony of the, or for the gun specification, consecutive to a 10-year sentence on the underlying felony of the first degree. Count 6 is failure to comply by operation of law. I must run that sentence consecutive to the remaining sentence. That'll be an additional 3 years, which will run consecutive. As to count 8, improper handling of a firearm, that'll be 18 months. Count 10, receiving stolen property, motor vehicle, 18 months. Count 11, having weapon under disability, that'll be 3 years. Again, count 1 and count 6 shall run consecutive to one another. Count 8, 10, and 11 shall run concurrent to each other, and to count 1, that'll be a 20-year sentence. Sir, upon your release from the institution, you are subject in count 1 to a mandatory minimum of 2 years up to a maximum of 5 years of what is called post-release control. That means that the Adult Parole Authority, and not this court, will supervise you. They will give you terms and conditions you must follow. Should you fail to meet the terms and conditions of the Adult Parole Authority, then they can modify and or extend your supervision and make it more restrictive, incarcerate you for up to 1/2 the original sentence imposed by the court. If you fail to appear for them, they can charge you with a new offense called escape, another felony where you'd face additional prison time. And if you commit new crimes while on post-release control, you can face the maximum penalty under the law for new crimes committed. As I indicated at the time of the plea, you are subject to the Reagan-Tokes law, which means you will receive 2 sentences today. You will receive a definite sentence, that being 20 years. You will receive an indefinite sentence as well. That indefinite sentence will be based on your conduct while at the institution. If you misbehave at the institution, you don't follow their rules, the institution and not this court can hold a hearing. At that hearing, they can extend your prison sentence 50% or 1/2 of my original sentence. 50% of 10 would be 5. And I must advise you of the following: that there is a rebuttable presumption that the defendant shall be released from the service of the sentence at the expiration of their minimum term or presumptive early release date, whichever is earlier. That the DRC may rebut presumption if, at a hearing held under 2967.271, DRC makes specified determinations regarding the offender's conduct while confined, the offender's threat to society, the offender's restrictive housing, if any, while confined, and the offender's security classification. That if, as described in Division 2, DRC at the hearing makes a specified determination and rebuts the presumption, they may maintain the offender's incarceration after the expiration of that minimum term or after the presumptive earned early release date for the length of time DRC determines to be reasonable, subject to the limitations specified in Section 2967.271. That the Department may make the specified determination and maintain the offender's incarceration under the provisions described in Division B2C1 and Division 2 of this section more than one time, subject to the limitations specified in Section 2967.271. That if the offender has not been released prior to the expiration of the offender's maximum prison term imposed as part of the sentence, the offender must be released upon the expiration of that term. As to the failure to comply, that'll be a lifetime suspension of your driving privileges. I will not impose any other fines, fees, or costs. You've previously been declared indigent and remain so. You will receive 188 days of jail time credit and any other days awaiting transport. And on behalf of the state, I believe we've covered all the issues here today. Are there any other concerns?
No, Judge, thank you.
Counsel?
No, Your Honor.
And I'll note your objection to Reagan Tokes for the record.
Thank you.
Anything else then from the state?
No, Judge.
Anything else, counsel?
No, Your Honor.
We're adjourned. Sheriff, please transport him to the institution.
Dan DeRose with 19 News. As you see, Jerion Church heading to 20 years in prison. The judge really handing it to Jerion Church there. The judge even saying, you ruined your life over a car, over a cheap car. And this is, again, part of the Kia boys and the Kia theft ring that has been plaguing the city. And you see Officer Barachuk there getting some handshakes, some powerful statements from both him and his wife and how their life has changed. Think about coming home from the hospital. Your arm had been shattered. You have a 3-month-old child at home, and when you get home, clearly all he wanted to do was to pick up his own son, and he could not do that because of his arm. And how life has changed. You heard him say that he has ridden dirt bikes his entire life, and his dream was to one day ride a dirt bike with his own son, and that will not happen because of the inability and the use of his left arm. You can see he's even favoring that arm even today as he goes through still the pain and the recovery of being shot. A very brief apology from Jerion Church. Lasted, I think, 5 seconds. A quick apology for shooting the officer and what it has done to his family. Just kind of an emotional day in church, and this judge saying that he can't figure out this world that we're living in. But that it is his job to rid the society, or at least send these individuals that are committing crimes like these to prison so that they are off the street. We will have a complete wrap up on this sentencing and all of the day's news that's been happening this morning coming up at 11 o'clock. That's an hour and 15 minutes from now on CW 43. Then our noon news on Channel 19. If we have anything else that breaks, it'll happen right here on our digital platforms. Until then, I'm Dan DeRose with 19 News. Have a good afternoon.
19 News is everywhere. Download our CTV apps and follow us on social media at Cleveland 19 News.